beautiful stars. I hope that you're doing so well today. If you're new here, welcome to my little slice of pie here on the internet. For today's video, I have my favorite podcasts. So I've been wanting to do this for a little while, and I actually filmed this last weekend, and I just felt like it just didn't turn out how I wanted to. So I thought I would, put together some notes. I have this old notebook where little Molli wrote in it. There's some like stick people in here, as you can see, and maybe not see. There we go. So I dug this notebook out of the drawer, and I wrote down my favorite podcasts and why I like them, just to keep myself on track. Got my bubble braids in my hair, got my funky earrings from the church thrift store, and we're just gonna hop right into this video. The first one is Crime Junkie. I really like this one. I am myself a crime junkie. I love listening and watching Kendall Rae's videos, and I realized that once I was done watching a lot of Kendall Rae's videos that I wanted to find another crime related thing. Once I got into podcasts this past year, I found Crime Junkie. I stuck with it ever since. I started from the beginning, and I'm like halfway through their podcast now. There's a lot of episodes to binge, which is a plus. There are two amazing hosts. There's Ashley Flowers and Britt. Ashley is like the main host and Britt is her co-host, and it's an Audio Chuck production. They have a few different podcasts under the Audio Chuck realm. I really like how well researched the podcasts are. Each one is nicely scripted and researched, so you know that they know what they're talking about. They're set in Indiana, so they just have some stories from Indiana and some from all around the world. They have covered some in Canada, and also I think there was like one in Mexico. I think there was some overseas in Europe, so they do try to cover all different grounds, and it's very interesting to hear about how crime is dealt in different areas. The next podcast is Lore, and this one I'm new to. I've listened to a few episodes, and this was introduced by one of my really good friends, Megan. We were talking about how crime podcasts can sometimes really stick with you, and it makes you a little paranoid. As good as that is to be well aware of your surroundings, it started to really mess with my anxiety, so I knew that I needed to, pull the brakes a little bit on those and try and find some other podcasts that still have like a spooky vibe to it, but is not as scary as crime can be. Lore is just that. It is talking about folklore, and the host does an amazing job at covering the stories. One that I really liked listening to was about familiars and how they were attached to the witch trials in Salem and many other places during that time period. There's like little musical intermissions, so it's just very aesthetically pleasing to listen to. I like how he talks about the stories. It's well researched and scripted, and I really enjoy it. The next one is Radio Rental. This is hosted by Rainn Wilson. He plays a character, and it's actually kind of goofy and silly, and I love that, but it is just like Goosebumps, Are You Afraid of the Dark, Twilight Zone kind of vibes. It's a little creepy, definitely gives you the chills sometimes. Each story is definitely a little different and gives you little spoonfuls of what else could be out there, So there's one story about this guy that when he was little, he went into a telephone booth and he would visit the puppy people. As he got older, he would see them in like the middle of the road, and crazy stories like that. So there's a lot to choose from, lots to listen to. There's about 2 stories per episode, and Radio Rental is like a video store, so it gives you those nostalgic vibes of the 80s and 90s of going to the video store and picking out videos. And I love the background noises and the sound effects. They're very creepy, and I definitely recommend listening to this one. I binged it in a week and a half, so definitely check it out. Moving away from more creepy stuff is to more advice and kind of like women supporting women kind of vibes, and this one is Thick and Thin by Katie Bellotti. I love Katie. I've been watching her on YouTube for such a long time. She is a fellow YouTuber under Hello Katie, and she is only a few years older than me, so it's just like talking to a really wise friend that has seen a lot in her life. Katie is very wise, and I just love listening to her podcasts. They're always very enjoyable, and it feels like you're talking to a friend. She gives a really good perspective on life, and she does little Q&As at the end of each of her podcasts. And then some things that she's been starting to do is like the history of blank. So the history of heels and the history of lipstick is one that I've listened to, and I like how she researches the things and just makes it very laid back, but it's also well put together, if that makes any sense. So I definitely like it, and the intro song that she uses for her podcast is a banger, so definitely listen to it. The next one is Souls at Sundown, which is also a fellow YouTuber's podcast. Megan Megan Hughes. I love Megan. She hasn't uploaded a podcast since December, but I'm sure with everything that's going on in the world, it's been probably hard to sit down and film a podcast or record a podcast. So she is another wise gal. I feel like, again, she's someone that you're talking to on like a friend basis or like an older sister. And I do have two older sisters, but she just gives a different perspective on life because she's doing a podcast. She does a lot of Q&A based things, and she also has like a song intermission throughout each of her podcasts, so it's a great way to listen to a new artist or a different song from an artist you may enjoy. And the next one is Science Versus. This is also a newer podcast to me, and I love this because the host is Australian, and I think it just adds a fun little touch to the podcast. It makes you want to listen a little bit more, I feel like. And I know not everyone likes when a certain podcaster has an accent, or just depending on like the music they use or whatever, but I do think this is kind of intriguing within itself. What I like about it is that each topic is different from each one, and it's science versus blank. So like they talked about ants for one of the topics and online dating for another, so definitely very different topics from each other, but it does give an interesting perspective because they talk about the science point of view, and then they also bring in experts and people that have experienced this one thing. I've liked it so far. It's very enjoyable. The sound effects are silly, and it just reminds me of like listening to Bill Nye or something. And the last one is Unsolved Mysteries. So we all know Unsolved Mysteries or 48 Hours, anything along the lines of that. I loved watching this show growing up, and I think that it's very spooky, definitely, and it covers lots of different things from like UFOs to paranormal. And one thing that I love about this podcast is it's very new. It's relatively new. There's only like 3 or 4 episodes. We listened to like 2 of them on our road trip just a few weeks ago, and it's just like the show but in podcast form. So if you do like the show, you'll like the podcast. The sound effects are great, and I like how well researched the show is. The cemetery one, which is the first episode, is by far my favorite. It was honestly very scary, and I would recommend listening to it. So those are all my favorite podcasts. If I missed any of your favorites, definitely comment those down below like always, and I'll see you in my next video. Till then, shine bright. Bye guys.